Good morning. I'm out here in the garden. I'm enjoying a cup of coffee and just enjoying the beauty that is the garden this year. So why do we garden? On our homestead, it's important to us to have close ties to our food and to our land, to know how our food has been grown and raised, and gardening allows us to do that. I'm so pleased with the melons in the garden this year. I've grown watermelons before, but it's my first year growing cantaloupe, and they're just everywhere. They're doing so good. Look, I mean, it seems like every time you pull back a leaf, there's another one there, there's another one there, and look, a little baby one here. They're so cute. I have a garden theme for 2020, and it's some to savor, some to store, some to share, and some to sell. And that really sums up much of why we garden. We want to provide food for our family. We also want to have food to give away to those who need it and to provide an income source in addition to our other farming ventures. If I really want gardening to be an income source for us, there's going to be a couple things I'm going to have to do better next year. One is to sow more often but fewer seeds so that I can have a continual harvest, and the other is to really figure out how to make a variety of things come ripe all at the same time. That is an area that I have struggled in and that I continue to struggle with. Like this year, my watermelon are all just about to be ready for harvest, but that's about it. There's not much else that's getting right at this time. Isn't this beautiful? I love having my morning coffee in this spot. This is about the third or fourth iteration of a garden for me, and it's been a bit of a struggle. It's been a tough learning curve, and last year I decided to completely redesign my garden. So this year I started dreaming in winter of what I wanted the garden to look like when I walked in through the door, and I decided that I needed it to be a place that was not only productive and didn't just represent work and reward of work, but also was a refuge, a retreat, a place where I could come out and sit and enjoy God's creation, have devotions, have a cup of coffee, relax with a friend, all those sorts of things. I needed it to be a place of beauty, to have some whimsy, some little surprises that you would find as you walked around, and I have really succeeded in doing that. So am I done? Have I reached my gardening pinnacle? Is it everything that I want it to be? No, it's not. There's a few things that aren't going quite right this year. And so today I have brought with me graph paper sketch pad because I'm not a great artist. I like having the lines to draw on. So what we're gonna do a full walk through the garden, and I'm really gonna take my time and observe what's going well, what do I love, what's not working so well, and what do I want to change for next year. And then I'm going to come and sit back down and sketch it out. These strawberries were sent to me by my mom's friend who lives in Washington State, and they got here in probably mid-July, and it's just so incredibly hot here that it's almost impossible for them to do okay. So I put them under a sheet with some shade. I've been making sure they get plenty of water, and hopefully they'll make it through to next year. I added these green bean teepees for some vertical climbing as well as visual interest. I love the way they look. It's amazing how much space pumpkin and melons take up. They just spread out everywhere, but I love eating them. I love the way they look, so for me it's worth giving them some garden space. I don't know if I'll grow as many pumpkins in the garden next year. I may move the pumpkins and have a whole pumpkin patch that's separate from the kitchen garden. This Moon and Stars watermelon plant was given to me by my friend Katie, and I was surprised to see that not only is the watermelon going to have the special spotting on it, but the leaves have those yellow spots as well. I love looking at my plants and just noticing the tiny details and how beautiful they are, like all the little feathering on this tendril of cucumber plant. It's amazing. My green beans are not doing so good. The Japanese beetles are pretty much destroying them. I've had a big problem with beetles in the garden this year, and that's something that I'm really working on finding a good solution for. So if you guys have any tips that really work, please let me know. My butternut squash are doing amazing. They're prolific. The vines are everywhere. And I think next year I'm actually going to put them over an arch because look at how much coverage there is there. And there's all the squashes, and I can't really point while I'm holding the camera apparently, but there are just so many of them. My pumpkin though, something's getting it, and it's not doing so great on this particular vine. But looky there, look at there, what's that? Little bumblebee inside the flower. Thank you, little pollinators. Appreciate your work. And that is another Big Mac's pumpkin. So we'll just follow it along here. What do we have? Oh, more pole beans, right? And of course, more Japanese beetles. Yuck. All right, and then there's some more of the pumpkin leaves. And look at this, guys. Look at this. I am so happy with this pumpkin. This thing is huge. Look at him. Oh my goodness. There's some more butternut squash that are just leaving, so they really need to be on an arch. They're going to do really good there. So yellow squash and zucchini, and I need to plant fewer of them and plant them farther apart because they grow so big and so wide around, and it's really hard for me to find the zucchini. I need to find a way to space them out so that I can harvest the zucchini when they're a normal size and not like the size of my forearm. If you are enjoying seeing what's going on here at Plan B Orchard and Farm, would you consider subscribing to the channel and then hit the notification bell and select all so you'll know every time a new video comes out. So here's another cucumber that's on the trellis, and it's not really producing like I wanted. None of my cucumbers are really coming in. I mean, normally you got too many, right? But this year I'm not having enough cucumbers. I don't know why. What? How did you guys escape my notice? And they're not really good when they're this big either. Alright. Wow. I gotta get something to cut this down to. Shoot. Here's one of my two comfrey plants, and comfrey is really useful for a lot of things. You can feed it to the animals. It aids in digestion. It is good in salves. You can chop and drop. You can put it in water and make a fertilizer out of it. And also, I think the flowers are really beautiful. Here's some more strawberries that I planted last year. This year they're putting out runners, but I don't have any berries yet. My bell peppers are not doing so good. They're still pretty small. I think I made the mistake of planting them too near other plants that are shading them out. I think the bell peppers really need the heat and sunlight. So next year I'm going to find a place to plant them where they're not overshadowed by anything else. I planted a couple varieties of tomatoes. So these mortgage lifters are absolutely huge. So I think those are going to sell pretty good. And then I've got the Rutger tomato, which is just a regular slicing tomato. I planted some brassicas. They're not doing so great. They got ate up. So one thing that I'm definitely going to invest in for next year is some netting. I planted just a couple black-eyed pea plants because Chris wanted me to. No other reason at all. So here's one of my kale beds, and this one was planted in with onions. This is my second onion bed. I've already had 2 onion harvests, and I need to pull those pretty soon. This is lamb's quarter, which is really good for you, but it's also really hard to keep in control because it just gets so big. You can see these plants are like 3 feet high. This is my second carrot bed, so I've harvested my first one already, and this one is almost ready to harvest. And then I just planted these beets for a winter harvest, and they haven't started sprouting yet, and that's why I have the feed bags on them. And then this is my third carrot bed that I've planted, and it's not really germinating. I think maybe the soil has just been too hot. So let's take a look and see if any carrots are coming up yet, because I don't think there are, but we'll check and see. And nope. No carrots, just crickets. Alright, so here's my other kale bed. Now this one is by a trellis where I planted peas and lettuces and other things. And the kale's doing pretty good. The grass is also doing really good. I have so many problems with weeds. And this thing right here is super pokey and big, and I don't even have any idea what it is. I planted potatoes all along both of these fence lines, and look what you see, grass. So I think the potatoes are under there ready to harvest because the plants died back. When I think about where I started with gardening a few years ago and I look at this, I'm so happy with it. Even with the struggles, even with the challenges, it's just amazing to see all of this good food growing right here on my own property. So now I'm going to take a seat and I'm going to think about, some of the things that I talked about. I'm going to make a list for myself of things I want to change next year. I'm going to sketch out the garden and kind of move stuff around and figure out what do I want to plant where. How can I make better use of this space and get some more productivity out of it while still making it a magical, lovely place to be in. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in the garden today. Please leave your comments down below. Tell me, what else do you think I need to change for next year? I could really use the help. Have a great weekend.